discussion of vice and virtue. Last time we talked about 7 deadly sins, 7 cardinal virtues, and I want us to go back into areas of sin and start with the basic sins. Okay, we're talking about vice here, but what are the 3 basic sins? You could summarize all sin pretty much into 3 areas. What do you think those would be? You already looked, okay. So think of
Lusting,
lust of the eye,
coveting,
lust of the flesh, pride of life. The Apostle John summarizes that, and the whole thing he was describing was the love of the world. He described the love of the world as lust of the flesh, lust of the eye, and pride of life. It's interesting when you go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, and how Eve was tempted. Remember what it says about how she was drawn to the fruit. It says when she saw that it was what?
really good.
Pleasant to the eyes. Must have been very pretty. Looked like it was good for food. She just thought it would taste good. Yeah, tasty. So that'd be the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eye. And then it says that she considered it what? Something that would make her wise. Pride of life. Pride. Yeah. So these are the 3 areas. So what I want us to do is break some of these down, in specific sins under each area. So let's start with lust. Lust is a general word. What does it mean? What's the word lust mean, literally?
To desire or something.
Desire.
Desire, give a function.
It can be it can actually refer to natural desire, which is appropriate desire, but usually it's used as a negative term. Sinful desire.
So like your weakness.
Your weakness, yeah. So lust, what are different kinds of lusts? You're drawn to something you shouldn't have.
Like, how does it say sexual?
Yeah, there's sexual lust, so purity. This would include sexual sins such as adultery, lust of sexual desire. There's a lot of the news right now, sexual harassment and that kind of thing. Well, this is out of lust, right? It comes out of lust. Gluttony could fit into this category. Why? Gluttony is the abuse of the desire for food. Drunkenness, see, this is lust. Abuse of the desire for drink, right? Sloth. What would the abuse here be? What natural desire do we all have? That relates to sloth. We all have a need for rest and relaxation. But if you want that so much, the Proverbs, an interesting way of describing sloth is someone who's so lazy that he could barely even bring up his hand for his chest to eat. He's just so lazy. But laziness is a problem, right? It can be a problem. So abuse of the natural desire for rest. Oh, put that up there. The corresponding corresponding virtue. So what would be the opposite of lust? What would be, instead of being lustful,
Good.
instead of being out of control in regards to your desires?
Moderation.
Yeah, self-discipline or self-control, which is one of the fruit of the Spirit, right? Self-control. Control your appetites. Right? The Apostle Paul says, I keep my body under. I keep my body under, lest having preached to others, I become a castaway. You know, he's controlling his natural desire to keep it in the right direction. Any other thoughts on lust? Okay. Now, the next one you could think of in almost the same way, but it's a little different. This is covetousness.
Wanting something that's not yours.
Yes. So this is not so much the lust of the flesh, but the lust of the eye. You see something, oh, I want that. Okay? I want it. So what would be another word to describe covetousness or to speak of covetousness? Starts with the G. Greed. Covet is to seek for something, someone, some position, some recognition, or some pleasure, not in the will of God. So do not covet your neighbor's wife. Well, obviously, that is not in the will of God for you to have your neighbor's wife, even though you think she's pretty. No, you're not supposed to have her. Well, remember Naboth? He wanted the vineyard, or Ahab wanted the vineyard of Naboth, right? Was it appropriate for him to want it? He would want it. Well, it wasn't even appropriate for him. What it did really wasn't his. You know, the families had their certain vineyards, and that belonged to them, and they had no right to try to seek after this property. He ended up being consumed with his covetousness, and ended up, remember, killing them. Covetousness is the root of sin. It's the root of all kinds of evil. Love of money, 1 Timothy says. It leads to stealing, adultery, murder. Remember what happened to Ahab here. He ended up killing Naboth. But remember what happened to David in regards to Bathsheba. Yeah, David coveted Bathsheba. Desires someone he shouldn't have gone after, but then you see how that led to all kinds of things. The adultery. All right, so the corresponding virtue is contentment. Instead of being greedy, we're content.
Where I learned once, I understand I am, there want to be content.
Yes, Paul said, I've learned that whatever state I have to be content. He was saying, you know, when things are going well for me, sometimes I have money, sometimes I don't. Either way, I've learned to just accept what God has given me. And then pride. Setting a value on self greater than it merits. So essentially, you're believing the wrong things about yourself. You think you're something that you're not. You have a higher opinion. You don't realize that everything that you have comes from God. You don't give yourself credit, but some people do.
Pride isn't always wrong. Aren't we supposed to be proud of what we do?
Okay, to take pride in our work. For instance, look at me and God and say, yes, I like that, I'm happy with that. So, and that's, I'm proud. You could be proud of your family's, your kids' accomplishments. I'm proud of you. Let's talk about some areas of pride. You've got the pride of position. So your station in life, the job that you have, the position that you have, and it controls the way you think about other people, right? It causes you to treat other people the way you shouldn't. Pride of ability or achievement, right? But what does 1 Corinthians 4:7 say about what we have? I'll just say it. What do we have that we have not received? That's a rhetorical question. What's the answer? What do we have? What do we possess that we have not received from someone else? Nothing. Ultimately, nothing. Because God is the one. John 15. Remember what Jesus says in John 15? He says, apart from me, you can do nothing. And Paul acknowledges that in 2 Corinthians 3, my sufficiency is not of myself, or my competency is not of myself, it is of God. So if you're tempted to take pride in a bad way in what you can do, or how smart you are, or whatever, how do we respond to that? Remind ourselves. With Jesus, without you, I can pray. Without you, Jesus, I can do nothing. God, I know my sufficiency is not of myself, it's of you. God, I know that I don't have anything that I have not received. All good things come from all gifts. Every good gift comes from above. So you can create antidotes to some of these things. Quoting scripture. I have these verses down here for you. 1 Corinthians 4:7, John 15, and 2 Corinthians 3. All right. Any thoughts on pride? Can people be proud of their possessions? But again, what do we have that we have not received? I mean, the very fact that you might have a good job and you afford things that you have, that's a blessing of God. It doesn't have to be that way. You could be like Megan and search all summer long and do 80 applications and never get a job in Canada. What we have is what God has given us ultimately. And of course, God expects us to work hard, and He blesses our work. He rewards us for our efforts, and many times we have things that we wouldn't have had because we work hard. We could have pride of knowledge, couldn't we? What does Paul say about the possibility of knowledge? What could knowledge be? 1 Corinthians 8, verse 1. Paul says, knowledge puffs up. It doesn't have to. But it can puff you up. Proud. Yeah, I know a lot more than everybody else. So you take pride in that. Spiritual pride. hope you don't know anybody that you perceive as spiritually proud. But what would a spiritually proud person be like? A Pharisee?
Basically.
Someone who never has to ask for forgiveness because they never do anything. Yeah. You're thinking you're more spiritual than anyone else. Your testimonies are crafted to demonstrate how holy and humble you are. So this is why sometimes it's hard to testify, because you're thinking like, well, man, I want to make sure I'm bragging on Jesus and not just bragging on myself. Obviously you have to be careful about that, but don't let that keep you from bragging on Jesus. Give God credit for how it's helped you. But like I said, there are some people who never feel like they need to ask for forgiveness. And because they are a Christian, because they are holy, they never do anything wrong. So whatever they just did that offended you, well, that wasn't wrong. They don't need to ask for forgiveness.
More your fault than it was theirs.
Yeah, it's your fault. Yeah. And I consider that fanaticism. You're over the edge. Spiritually, if you think you never have to ask for forgiveness, you think you're so holy that you never need to humble yourself. Of course, what's going to help you people is get married, and your spouse will keep you humble, right? All right. So, looking at this from a little different angle here. Forms of pride. Okay, so how was this exhibited? Well, boasting, seeking praise, so wanting, seeking recognition for the gifts that we give. You have to have your name written in brick if you're going to give anything. I don't think you have to refuse that. But I'm not going to give any money, unless I see my name somewhere. What's that?
I said, I helped at a camp once and they didn't put my name in a thing, so I'm like, joking around, I'm not going to do it again, let's get my name in the thing.
Yeah. You want your name in there?
Yeah, we know what's been
Yeah.
I'm not guilty.
Yeah. Accepting honor, that would be allowing others over whom we have control to promote our greatness. So this is when it gets out of control, where they're really puffing you up, and it's not really. No, obviously it's not wrong to put your best foot forward and to for someone, an advertisement to put you in a good light. But if it's ridiculous and you have some control over this, then that would be wrong. Self-confidence. So you see people who have a self-sufficient attitude, and they don't really need God. They don't really need other people. Like the self-made man. Well, that's very dangerous. You need to have a little more humility than that. What about self-pity? Is that a form of pride?
Fishing for compliments.
Yeah, it's like a reverse tactic.
It's a disguised pride. Because when I'm grieving because I don't get the attention from others that I think I deserve. That's why I feel sorry for myself.
I was going to say someone who's always down and looking for someone to pull them up every single time. Which it could go the other way around too. And you need that someone to pull you back up.
Right. That's true, but can you see how self-centered it is to just always be thinking about yourself and always feeling sorry for yourself? I mean, one thing it's saying is that you expect too much of other people. And you might not be grateful for what you do have, for the attention that you do get, right? For the help you do get from others. And so I think this, antidote, yeah, be grateful. Be grateful for what you do have, for the attention that you do get. And just stop just thinking about yourself all the time. If you're thinking about, even if you have this inferiority complex, if you have an inferiority complex, what are you doing?
For self-confidence, those fiercely independent people, would that fall under that? Like, I can do it myself, no one needs to.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right. You don't need anybody else. Yeah. But let's talk with this false humility and inferiority complex. You've heard of people where I'm not wanting to volunteer for something because my weakness might be exposed, So it could be a false or inferiority complex. Samuel Shoemaker said, "You can never have real humility while you are preoccupied with yourself. An inferiority complex is the most self-centered state of mind in the world." So someone who's always putting themselves down, right? Is that humility? I mean, self-deprecation is not always bad, but I'm just talking about people who always just... The bottom line is they're still talking about themselves. It's about them. It's a self-centeredness. How about talking about other people? How about thinking about other people? And there's people who they may not think too much of themselves, but they think too much of themselves. You know what I mean? They think too much about themselves. Right? And I think that's important. I mean, God needs to help us with that, right? We all have we all think about ourselves. But it can kind of get out of control, where your identity is wrapped up in your performance. Right? Have you known people like that? Maybe you're playing a game with them and you want to... I've done this before. I kind of want them to win because they take it too personal. Their self-esteem will be severely damaged if they don't win the game because they're extremely competitive. Not because they just enjoy it so much, but because their whole self-esteem is wrapped up in how they perform. Yeah. Why not just be confident about yourself and not worried about it? Right? Have a self-image that's not based on performance, but it's just you're confident in yourself, but your confidence is in God, and it really doesn't matter that much what people think about you. And so what if you mess up? You know what I mean? So the corresponding virtue here to pride would be humility, right? And how do we cultivate humility? First of all, what is true humility? It's recognizing the role of God and others in your life. So what would be the marks of a humble person? Have you ever met somebody that was like, well, this guy's humble. I really admire that quality about him. He's just a humble person. Some people, maybe they're more humble than you think they are, but some people you just think that's a equality, and maybe they're not admitting it, you know, they admit it. So a humble person is teachable, recognizes the importance of others in their life, and to their thinking, and gives them credit. That gives God credit, gives other people credit, doesn't have to take credit for all the ideas that they bring up. What about this? Being content, being a happy camper, not always complaining about this or that, how this person wronged them, or whatever. You know, they're a happy camper, willing to serve, and doesn't need recognition, and doesn't feel like he's condescending when he does serve. I think that would be a mark of a humble person. It doesn't try to leave the impression that he's a better person. Oh, that doesn't mean you can't put your best foot forward. You know, like last night I went to the dorm. Everybody's putting their best foot forward. You know, they were making sure that their room was nice to look at. It's okay. But don't lie about it when I ask you that your room is like this all the time.
You didn't have to ask that. Come on now.
So, all right. Any other thoughts on that? So, how do you cultivate humility? How do you become a more humble person? This is something we all probably should admit that we need to work on, become more humble. There are benefits to this. It brings down the pride but exalts the humble.
You can start by praying by asking God.
Okay,
It's a
good.
good place to start.
Good.
And find places in the Bible about humble people and study them.
Good. Okay. Maybe you have any ideas? How to become a more humble person?
Just practice focusing on others instead of yourself.
That's good. That's very good. Very good. Very good. Okay, well, let me give you this list here. Keep broken before God. Try to keep humble before God. If you keep broken before Him, then He won't have to break you necessarily, right? You know, which goes along with this. Obey the checks of the Holy Spirit in the little things. That way, He won't have to bring you down in a major way. Acknowledge the reality that you need Christ for everything. Be grateful. You mentioned that. Depend on God for everything. Constantly tell Him how much you need Him, how much you're leaning on Him for provision, for help, for strength. Ask God for a humble confidence. Yes, we do need to be humble, but we also need to be confident. But this confidence is from God. Okay, that's good. All right, so that wraps up that whole discussion, and hope you have a good, humble, confident rest of your day.